It is midnight in Washington, 5 in London, and 2 on a Friday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Conn-young. Let's get a check of the main stories we're following at this hour. South Korea stands to separately deal with the reunion of families separated during the Korean War, and the resumption of a mountain tourism project remains unchanged. But Seoul leaves the door open for talks on the Mount Geumgang Tour project if some conditions are met. South Korea and the United States continue talks on this Friday on how much each side should contribute towards the stationing of U.S. troops in Korea. Now, this is their 10th round of talks. And New Jersey Governor and potential Republican presidential contender Christie fires an aide who allegedly organized an act of political revenge that has threatened his political career. We'll have those stories and more, but first let us begin in this country. Seoul's Unification Ministry says it is willing to talk about the resumption of an inter-Korean tourism project near Mount Geumgang if North Korea makes a request for dialogue. Ministry spokesman Kim Ui-do said Friday that although the issues of tourism operation and family reunions are not linked, South Korea would be willing to talk about the Mount Geumgang tourism project if Pyongyang were to make a detailed proposal. Now, his remarks come a day after North Korea rejected Seoul's proposal to resume inter-Korean family reunions for those separated during the Korean War. The spokesman said North Korea should show it is sincere about Seoul's offer if it truly wants improved ties with the South. Meanwhile, North Korea has been found to have the worst nuclear security conditions in the world. A report by a U.S.-based think tank shows the regime ranks rock bottom in terms of safeguarding its nuclear materials and adhering to international standards. Connie Kim has the details.
While the international community rightly focuses on the problems facing the region and the wider world after the Fukushima nuclear disaster, something equally as bad could happen at any time just north of the border, as a new report shows North Korea has the worst nuclear security conditions in the world. Nuclear Threat Initiative, a U.S.-based think tank, ranked North Korea's Nuclear Materials Security Index at 30 points out of 100, the lowest among 25 countries that hold weapons-usable nuclear materials. The index measures the quantity and sites of nuclear materials, global norms and domestic commitments of countries with more than 1 kilogram of highly enriched uranium and plutonium. Among the factors evaluated, North Korea ranked the lowest in the categories of voluntary commitments, safeguards adherence, and compliance. The NTI said that the North's lack of information regarding nuclear activity was the main reason behind the country's low scores. The organization also added it could improve its scores if the country signs and ratifies international agreements and shows initiative in international nuclear security. Overall, nuclear material security improved worldwide. 7 states, including Hungary, Mexico, and Ukraine, began completely removing most or all of its weapons-usable nuclear materials in 2012. The report comes ahead of the Nuclear Security Summit to be held in March in The Hague. Australia topped the list, followed by Canada and Switzerland, while India and Iran ranked 23rd and 24th, respectively. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Well, former NBA star Dennis Rodman is in the headlines again for stirring up controversy again following a report that he brought luxury gifts worth thousands of dollars to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife. Well, it remains to be seen whether he will face consequences for the act, which is a clear violation of UN sanctions. Son Jung-in reports.
The controversy surrounding former NBA star Dennis Rodman flared anew after revelations that Rodman gave North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his family luxury gifts worth thousands of dollars on his recent trip there. Dennis Halpin, a scholar at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, quoting a diplomatic source, said Rodman was carrying birthday presents for the North Korean leader and gifts for his family. According to the source, Rodman brought several $100s worth of Irish Jameson whiskey, European Crystal, an Italian suit for Kim, and a fur coat and an English Burberry handbag for Kim's wife, Lee Seol-ju. The total cost of the gifts is reportedly well over $10,000 US. Halpin noted that providing Pyongyang with any luxury goods is a clear violation of the sanctions imposed by UN Security Council Resolution 1718, which was first imposed after North Korea's first nuclear test in 2006 and as a response to Kim Jong-il's large-scale purchases of luxury goods as his people went hungry. The UNSC resolution specifies that prohibited luxury goods are banned for transfer to North Korea, including certain kinds of jewelry and precious stones and luxury automobiles. It remains to be seen whether Rodman will be punished under an executive order signed by U.S. President Barack Obama that states that harsh penalties can be imposed on any U.S. citizen violating the resolution. Rodman could be facing up to 20 years in jail and a fine of $1 million, along with other civil penalties. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
South Korea and the United States are continuing talks on this Friday on how much each side should contribute towards the stationing of U.S. troops here in Korea. Well, sources say the biggest sticking point at the 10th round of talks in Seoul remains the total amount of Korea's contribution. Well, Seoul wants its payments starting this year to be about $850 million, but Washington is asking for more. The two sides hope to finalize a special measures agreement, of which the previously agreed terms expired last week. China has accused Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of siding with convicted war criminals over the United Nations, following his recent visit to the Yasukuni Shrine, as Japanese war dead honored there include more than a dozen Class A war criminals. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
China has taken its diplomatic row with Japan to the United Nations, questioning Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's distorted view on history after he visited a shrine commemorating several notorious war criminals. China's UN envoy Lui Ji-yi says Abe was siding with convicted war criminals over the UN by visiting the Yasukuni Shrine, which he said whitewashes and glorifies Japan's wartime aggression.
It is a dangerous distortion of the right and wrong. It is also a stand on the wrong side of history.
In response, Japan's UN ambassador Motohide Yoshikawa said Abe's visit did not praise war criminals or militarism, but was a tribute to the Japanese war dead. Following talks with visiting Japanese foreign and defense ministers in Paris Thursday, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said Abe's visit, although a delicate issue, was to respect the Japanese that died during the war. Abe's younger brother and senior vice foreign minister, Nobuo Kishi, will head to the U.S. next Monday to ask Washington to understand why Abe visited the shrine. During his 5-day trip, Kishi is expected to meet with U.S. government officials and experts, among others. 14 Class A war criminals and 100 more convicted of lesser crimes are enshrined in Yasukuni, among Japan's 2.5 million war dead. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
Back here in this country, the leaders of the ruling and main opposition parties are set to hold separate press conferences early next week, where they will announce their policy goals for 2014. ARIRANG News political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports on what we can expect.
The ruling Saenuri Party will hold its New Year's news conference at its headquarters in Yeouido next Tuesday, about 1 week after President Park Geun-hye held her own. Saenuri Party chief Hwang Woo-yeol is expected to outline how his party intends to help President Park realize her 3-year economic innovation plan. The president wants to put the country on the path to a per capita income of $40,000 and a 70% employment rate before her term ends. With that in mind, the ruling party chief is likely to talk about how the National Assembly should support the slowly recovering economy and boost domestic demand. As the legislation of such bills requires bipartisan efforts, Hwang is likely to seek help from the main opposition party. Another issue that may come up during the press conference is reunification with North Korea, which President Park described as being a jackpot in her New Year's address. On the other side of the political aisle lies the main opposition Democratic Party, whose chairman Kim Han-gil will hold his New Year's press conference on Monday. Political watchers expect Kim to urge President Park and the government to communicate more effectively in 2014, both with the general public and the opposition.
He's also expected to once again call on the president to launch an independent investigation into allegations that a number of state institutions, including the spy agency and the military, try to influence the outcome of the 2012 presidential election in favor of now President Park Geun-hye. Reviving the economy is also a goal of the Democratic Party, but the party wants to do it by promoting fair business practices. The policy divide between the rival parties and the illegal electioneering scandal in the run-up to the 2012 presidential election kept the National Assembly in a deadlock for much of last year. Kim Hyun-ji, ARIRANG News.
The latest round of talks on a Korea-China free trade agreement came to an end earlier this Friday morning, but with no significant breakthroughs. Now, in the 9th round of talks held in China's central Shanxi province, the two countries began discussing the products that will be subject to the deal, including those each side considers highly sensitive. The Korean Trade Ministry said, however, the two failed to make much progress. Korea had asked the tariffs on the petrochemical, steel, and IT industries be lifted, while China asked that certain manufactured products from Korea be classified as highly sensitive. Korea believes the FTA with its #1 trading partner China will give it leverage in negotiating the terms of its participation in the U.S.-led multilateral Trans-Pacific Partnership. Meanwhile, Korea's shipbuilding sector picked up steam last year as global ship orders it received nearly doubled compared to the previous year. London-based Clarkson Research Services says that Korea's new ship orders amounted to slightly over 16 million compensated gross tons in 2013, up 99% from the year earlier. While China has the most ship orders, Korea had the most total earnings with $41 billion. The figure was boosted as the nation's shipbuilding companies won a number of high-priced ship contracts, such as container ships and LNG-fueled ship last year. And taking a brief look at how the local stock market is doing at this hour. Seoul shares fell to their lowest level in more than 4 months on this Friday, dragged down by worries about the outlook for corporate earnings, while overseas investors were reluctant to buy ahead of the U.S. jobs data due later in the day. As of 1:30 p.m. Korea time, the benchmark Kospi was down 0.6% at 1935, while the Tech-heavy Kosdaq was also trading in negative territory by 0.7%. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency was trading stronger against the greenback at roughly 1,062 won. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke has offered an optimistic view on the U.S. economy's prospects, but warned that tough decisions lay ahead on dealing with long-term budget deficits and spiraling healthcare costs. Now, meeting with Democratic senators in Washington Thursday, Bernanke said the reduction in federal budget deficits and the country's improving energy position were contributing to a healthier U.S. economy. However, a senator at the meeting says Bernanke tempered his positive outlook by warning that long-term challenges do remain, particularly regarding health care. Bernanke's term as Fed chairman ends on January 31st, and he will be replaced by current Vice Chair Janet Yellen after she was confirmed by the Senate earlier this week.
All of the day's important events close to home, around the world.
Second half last, figure out what winners.
The arts and culture scene and the heart of global business.
Experts added that
ARIRANG News has your whole day covered.
the legislature will convene a plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring.
Over in the United States, New Jersey Governor Christie has fired a top aide who appears to have ordered lane closures at a key bridge connecting New Jersey and New York City last fall as political payback. Our Shin Se-min has more on the growing scandal that could threaten the governor's presidential aspirations.
New Jersey Governor Christie apologized Thursday for a growing scandal that threatens to shake his possible run for the presidency in 2016.
I am embarrassed and humiliated by the conduct of some of the people on my team. There's no doubt in my mind that the conduct that they exhibited is completely unacceptable and showed a lack of respect for their appropriate role at government and for the people that we're trusted to serve.
The apology follows revelations that one of his top aides may have ordered the closure of traffic lanes on the George Washington Bridge in September in what appears to be an act of revenge. The bridge connects New Jersey to New York City and is a major commuter route. The scandal broke Wednesday with the revelation of texts and emails showing that Bridget Ann Kelly, the governor's deputy chief of staff, and David Wildstein, a top executive at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which manages the George Washington Bridge, may have conspired to orchestrate the lane closure last fall. The lane closure appears to have been planned as political payback against a Democratic mayor in the state who refused to endorse Christie over his Democratic rival in his re-election bid last year. Christie announced Thursday that he fired Kelly while Weinstein resigned over the scandal early last month. The Office of the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey has announced it is launching an investigation into the case. Christie is a rising star in the Republican Party and a possible presidential contender in 2016. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
In other news, Germany has vowed to give a helping hand in destroying Syria's chemical weapons stockpile. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier says Berlin has decided to contribute as it has the capacity and technology to undertake this task. Of course, Syria is believed to have 1,300 tons of chemical weapons materials, including nerve agents like sarin and VX. The German minister added the removal of the weapons could be a decisive step towards ending the conflict in Syria. Waste from the destroyed weapons will be burned at a government facility in the town of Munster in northern Germany. Germany has until now refused to accept chemical weapons onto its soil. The country has a strong pacifist and anti-nuclear movement which is opposed to any involvement in foreign missions, especially in the Middle East. Now, Korean Airlines may soon allow the use of electronic devices during takeoffs and landings if it is confirmed the devices do not interfere with the aircraft's own communication and navigational systems. Smartphones, however, would have to be put in airline mode, which cuts off radio communication, and passengers will still be prohibited from making calls. The move follows a similar decision made by the Federal Aviation Administration in the U.S. Korea's Transport Ministry has formed a special task force to determine the level of radio interference by portable electronic devices and will make its final decision before the end of March. Now, with a drop in mercury levels, insulation products have been gaining popularity here in Korea. The products are cheap and easy to install, but just how effective are they in cutting heating costs? Our Kim Min-ji takes a look.
Bubble wrap, commonly used to wrap fragile goods, has been selling well in Korea, not for its original purpose, but for its insulating effects. But just how effective is it? In a recent experiment, a window was divided into 3 parts, and one part was covered with a layer of bubble wrap, another with 2 layers, while a third part was left without it. The room was set at 20 degrees Celsius, while the temperature outside was -15. 2 hours later, the part without the bubble wrap had dropped to 13 degrees Celsius, while the part with 1 layer of bubble wrap was 15.5 degrees, and the double-layered part of the window was 16 degrees. As the results show, bubble wrap helps prevent heat loss by about 3 degrees.
For better results, it would be best not to cover the parts of the window that get the most sunlight so as to receive as much solar energy as possible.
Another experiment was conducted to see how effective vinyl insulation film and paper weather strips were in blocking drafts. After the materials were placed, researchers directed a wind with a speed of 5 meters per second at the window and measured the pressure of the leaking air. When nothing was installed on the window, the pressure was 7. The window covered with wind vinyl had a pressure reading of 0, meaning it had blocked the draft 100%. The paper weather stripe, on the other hand, had a pressure reading of 5, meaning it was only able to block about 20 to 30% of the draft.
A lot of households are placing insulation strips and bubble wrap on their windows. But before doing that, they must block the draft coming in from the windows and doors to make it effective.
So go ahead and try a combination of these simple but effective methods to conserve the heat in your home instead of worrying about your heating bill. Kim Min-ji,
ARIRANG NEWS.
And now it's time for our arts and culture segment with our Tae-ho. So let's bring in Tae-ho for this segment. Good afternoon to you, Tae-ho.
Good afternoon.
Now, the weekend is upon us, and of course, we're feeling the coldness already, and it's going to be a cold one this weekend. So we'd like to know what we can do with our friends and families indoors this weekend.
Well, you know, you're in luck because there's plenty to do this weekend, starting with some great exhibitions that are perfect for this, the Year of the Horse, that is set to begin in just a few short weeks here. Mongolian contemporary artist Adiyabazar Chadrabal is creating art on the fly for audiences. And the result? An image filled with the strength and spirit of the Blue Horse. You can see his work at an exhibition titled Age of the Blue Horse that is currently running at the Lotte Gallery in Seoul, Seoul until February 3rd. The exhibition was organized to commemorate the Year of the Blue Horse and features 28 artists from Korea, Mongolia, and Australia. The 70 works of art on display offer a modern interpretation of the horse in the form of paintings, sculptures, and installation art. And running until the 11th of January is the invitation exhibition that features 20 different sculptures, highlighting both the grace and strength of the horse. The exhibition is by sculptor Trail, who was captivated by horses on his first trip to a horse race.
The shock I received from the images at the horse race was a source of inspiration for me. Horses can be so soft and gentle, while at the same time so sleek and nimble.
And right now at the National Folk Museum of Korea is the exhibition Horse, a Vigorous Gallop. Since ancient times on the Korean peninsula, horses were considered spiritual creatures that dragged the souls of the dead to become great figures in their new lives. And this is the way in which horses are depicted at this exhibition, which features 60 different works of art, literature, and artifacts that represent horses in Korean culture and history.
You know, of course, as for the solar calendar, we are in the Blue Horse year, but according to the lunar calendar, we will be heading into the Year of the Blue Horse in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. And they all seem like fantastic exhibitions and shows for us to look at the different ways horses are presented.
Oh, that's correct. Now, in any society, not just here in Korea, horses were almost vital daily kind of tools of everything. They were used for farming, transportation, as well as communication. So it's interesting to see how the Koreans used in the past horses for their daily lives.
All right, and this exhibition seems like a great way for, you know, grown-ups or adults to for their pastimes. But what about children? They're in their winter breaks, and you know, parents are looking for ways to get their children out and, you know, preoccupied with something.
That's right. Now, and just in time for students' winter break here in Korea, I have a list of great productions that can be enjoyed by the whole family, whether you're an adult or a child, and maybe go and make some great winter memories. Our mothers are loved for all that they do for us. But what if that all-important figure were to be away from the house for even just a few days? A family that has to survive on their own for the few days that mommy is gone is the plot of the children's stage production titled Gochujang Tteokbokki, which of course is a popular snack in Korea that consists of rice cake in a red pepper paste sauce. Complete with live music, the family-friendly production is sure to be a hit with the whole family. A brother and sister tandem that can fly after eating bread made from clouds. The children's musical Cloud Bread has been retooled to excite audiences even more, with the addition of new characters and new scenes that feature actors doing, what else? Flying. Cloud Bread is an original Korean children's musical that has already thrilled over 500,000 viewers. The Dwarf Who Loves Snow White has been a hit as a stage production for 12 long years, but now it's back as a musical. The production is from the perspective of the seventh dwarf who is unable to speak, but nonetheless continues to profess his undying love for Snow White. A performance with an original story that is able to move the hearts of both children and adults alike would make for the perfect weekend trip to the theater. The world-famous Disney on Ice is coming to Seoul. Featuring all the popular animated characters from Disney, the show presents its signature message of hope and dreams to audiences, with the added flair of choreography on ice and dazzling light and music productions.
You know, I think here in Seoul, we're lucky to say there is never a lack of cultural exhibits, shows, or productions that we can enjoy over the weekend or, weekdays or whatnot.
And, it's not just for adults as well. There's plenty to do for people of all ages, whether you're a child, a student, university, in your teens, it doesn't matter. There's always something going on.
All right. Well, lucky for us. And thank you for that, Taeho. And we'll talk to you on Monday with more.
All right.
And that brings me to the end of this newscast. Thank you for staying here with us. I'll be back with more of these latest at 4 p.m. Korea time.